is this idea of how do we shift from what can we learn and do something better? Maybe we need to put on our own event, instead of going to that trade show. Maybe we need to do something a little bit more bespoke, but it doesn't mean we just say that channel's dead. And I think that sometimes as you're scaling, organizations can get shiny object syndrome where it's like, well, that's working. Let's keep doing that. And let's forget about trying new things.
Oh yes, this is the Hardcore Marketing Show. I'm Casey Cheshire, your host for this epic journey. Today's show is sponsored by Ringmaster, on a mission to launch B2B podcasts that create relationships, generate revenue, and drive growth. Ringmasterlive.com. Bam. All right. The train is leaving the station. It's like the roller coaster is about to happen. I'm excited. My guest today is absolutely a badass. Well, who is she, Casey? Who is she? Well, marketing leader, thought leader, award-winning marketer, I must add, and a mentor. Getting those accolades, but giving back to the community. Love that. Multiple award-winning, Stevie Award winner for Best Brand Activation, and multiple Telly Awards, if that gives you any clue about who you're about to learn from today. Vice President of Marketing at ABC Fitness, Agatha Asch. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
Man, me too. We finally got this thing lined up.
Finally.
The stars aligned.
Yeah.
Families are well. We're making this thing happen, right? So I'm going to pass you this thing. It's heavy, but you look strong. Here we go. Ready? Okay. Grab that. You got it? Okay. Well, there you go. Nice. Yeah. Take Thor's hammer.
I love this.
Smash from some kind of marketing myth, bogus strategy, misconception. Set the record straight once and for all.
Okay. So I'm going to, Thor hammer down. If you think brand marketers and demand marketers have different goals, you're wrong, and you're about to spend a lot of money duplicating efforts. Boom.
Dang. Shots fired. What's going on here? Why do they get confused?
Yeah, I think there's this interesting, I would say, divide within the field of marketing where you're either considered a brand marketer or a demand marketer. And in this world where we are moving so quickly and there's so much potential for marketers, I believe wholeheartedly that every marketer is a growth marketer. Doesn't matter where you sit within the organization. If you're a designer or a demand marketer or a campaign strategist, you all are driving towards the same thing: healthy pipeline and marketing influence, close won deals. Now, the ways that you figure out how you're going to get there might vary a little bit differently, right? But at the end of the day, everybody has the same revenue target, and that's what you need to be focusing on. It's something that I'm really passionate about because I've spent 2 decades seeing that divide and realizing it's just silly.
What is the divide? What's the what do people think each one are like these separate planets?
Yeah. So when, we'll get into my background in a little while, but I have 2 decades of marketing experience, and it's split 50-50 between advertising agency life and then in-house marketing side leading B2B teams for tech. And what's really interesting is I've seen that divide on both sides because now I'm kind of like the merger of the two. When I was agency side, there was that misconception, and I think brand marketers get this a lot of, you make the pretty things, either look really shiny or sound really good, but like the folks that are doing the marketing and making sure that the ads are executing and that their omni-channel strategies are going, they're the ones that drive the leads. As far as I'm concerned, everybody drives those, and you need to understand how your piece of the puzzle gets there. I'm really passionate about this because as you mentioned, I've been really lucky in my career to be able to work on some of the biggest brands in the world, the most amazing brands that have biggest budgets, and also a lot of, just mind and heart share being agency side. And I remember early on in my career sitting in rooms with beautiful creative ideas and thinking, that's really cool, but like, how's that going to drive sales? And I got louder and louder about that as my career started to take shape. I started thinking, maybe I'm crazy. Like, do we just make cool things? And then there was the realization of you could still make cool things, but it needs to be effective in market. It needs to be thought out. There needs to be a strategic approach behind it. It needs to actually generate and drive the ultimate goal.
Were things getting sloppy? Were they getting like, hey, we got tons of money, and they're like, hey, let's do this whole thing? And
I don't know about that. I mean, even small, I would say now being on like the B2B side, I don't know if things are getting sloppy. It was more this idea that like ideas are everything. And I think in some ways they are, but not every idea is an effective idea.
Yeah.
Good ideas can be good and not move the needle in revenue. You need to understand, okay, how do we ensure that that good idea is going to drive action for the business that we're behind?
Love that. And I guess the next equivalent is or question is like, how do you do that? How do you ensure that that idea is
Yeah.
going to drive the end result?
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, it starts with asking questions. There's this kind of like, I call it the marketing hot potato, where it's this idea of like, someone comes up with the strategy and then they toss the hot potato, and someone comes up with a brief and then you toss it, and then someone makes the pretty things and then toss it. Someone makes it sound good. You toss it and you figure out where it's going to go to get attention. And then you're like, hey, sales, we made you a campaign. And sales like, I don't even know what this is. So I think,
And they don't use it, right? And they don't use it. They just like literally.
Right. Like that's where cool ideas go to die. And I think in general, it's asking the question of, hey, like, what are you trying to do? What's not working?
Right.
Why don't we start at the problem and do that as a collective instead of it being a potato toss? I guess if we're using that same analogy, I mean, I like potatoes, but not that much. It's the idea of redistributing the heat. If we're all holding it, it doesn't hurt as much.
That's true. That's true. And then you know what's going on. Like the idea of just serving sales up this thing that they weren't involved in from the beginning. It's a very easy way to give them something that they do not want to eat.
Absolutely. And similarly, I would say if you don't know what your customers care about or your target ICPs, right? Like you give them something that they really don't want to eat or don't even realize that it's for them to eat, right? So there's kind of that, what does sales need? Why? What are customers not getting that we can like find that sweet spot? And I think that all comes in the whys and the hows, and putting together a really thoughtful strategic plan that's done in partnership with your sales team as marketers. And then you could put it through the machine, but ultimately that's where it needs to begin.
Yeah. Man, at the very beginning, I think did you say every marketer is a growth marketer? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
And then you said this very quickly, and I wrote down two of that. You said, hey, we're all just trying to do this. And I think you said like healthy pipeline and something.
Yeah. Marketing influence close won deals. I think sometimes it's quality leads, right?
Yeah.
We can drive as marketers a lot of eyeballs, a lot of visibility, inquiries or leads, for lack of a better term. But at the end of the day, if they aren't qualifying and they're not quality, we just got the wrong attention.
Yeah.
So ensuring that we get those quality eyeballs and that they generate closed won deals, that's who everybody in the marketing organization needs to be tied to. I use the designer as an example, because I think in some ways designers are some of my favorite people in the whole world.
Yeah.
So I hope some of them are listening to this, but
the good one.
Yeah, right. They have this like art form. And so as a result, folks sometimes think like they just go behind this curtain, do some shiny, like magical stuff. And then like, it just looks great. And there it is. And everyone buys it.
Right.
At the end of the day, they need to figure out, and as a designer, they need to understand, if I'm going to create something, why am I creating it? What's not working? What's the problem I'm trying to solve? And then the big thing is, did it work? That's where that hot potato becomes more of a, let me put my hand under it and carry it through, as opposed to tossing. Because say you're making an ad, what performed? Was it a first touch, last touch, attribution? Did this actually move the needle? Those are all KPIs that I think even designers need to be tied to, not just those that are, demand. It's everybody's a growth marketer in my mind.
Yeah, that feedback loop. That's a really good point. I don't think a lot of people talk about giving feedback to the designer or anyone else involved in the process.
Anyone. Yeah. Other way around too. Like I think about if you're in demand and you're on like the front lines and you're like, I'm not hitting my target. Why am I not hitting my target? I put the ad in the world and it's not working. It's on you to figure out, okay, wait a second. What is working? Hey, you know what I'm noticing? I'm noticing that when we say this message or we ask this question or when we use this color for whatever reason, like I think this is generating a lot more interest. Let me go talk to my folks over in brand and figure out if they can help me understand why, and let's do more of that. It's not just, one or the other. Everybody needs to be tied together.
How do you get everyone involved, but at the same time not make it like a circuit or everyone's deciding stuff and then you build this giant thing?
Oh yeah, no. Well, everyone can have opinions, but it doesn't mean that everyone's, or I guess, are the same weight as what you're saying.
Right.
I think ultimately it's just like playing a game or playing in an orchestra. Like you each have your instrument and you are playing your part of the song, but it's a collective piece. And I think that that's really critical as marketers. You know, it's absolutely fine to have that open feedback loop, but you also need to know, like, hey, that person's soloing right now. Let me talk to them after about how maybe we can do something a little bit better.
Yeah. What did you experience between large and small brands? Obviously the budget changed, and I think a lot of people understand that, but what else do you see in terms of the contrast?
Yeah, I think between large and small brands, um, I would say their commonalities is they both really care a lot about who is on the other side that they're targeting, right? I think that both require and have a firm idea of who their ICPs are, and believe in understanding and servicing them. So I've seen that to be like I would say the common denominator, and I think in some ways that's just having a marketing team with a heartbeat, right?
Sure.
Um, in general, I would also share that what I saw that was different, big brand to smaller brand, is that particularly within the B2B space, you have to be way more surgical if you're a smaller brand. You need to really, really understand who are your target audiences, what are your target accounts that you're going after, and how do you ensure that you're servicing those in a really memorable way, rather than being able to kind of just smatter everywhere, because you have that giant budget to be able to do that. In some ways, I think the smaller brands are where I personally made a pivot in my career to support that a little bit more because I like that it's so hard. I like that it's so personal. And I think that some of the best marketers in the world are working on the smallest brands right now.
Because you have to be I was literally that's so cool you brought that up because I was gonna ask you about, you know, the ICP, and every time I think about that, I think about people wanting to be everything to everyone, but then calling it an ICP.
Yeah, it's true. You can't be everything to everyone.
And you can't definitely when you're small, right? You can't afford that. Like, you're not and then you just get so generic that no one even looks at you.
Yeah, or it becomes really hard to innovate if you're super big, right? If you're known as like, well, we're just generic and this is what we do, so we have to plaster something somewhere because that's what we're known for. But if you ever want to change, it becomes that much harder. Um, and I think you almost can take a little bit of a page from the playbook of the smaller brands to figure out, well, wait, how do we actually do that in a more targeted way?
Yeah, I've always been a fan of, like, the small brands within a large group. I remember working with a small group at AT&T who was like, "Yeah, please help us, do this software, but please, we wanna avoid using the corporate, eloquent instance, like, if we do that, we'll be waiting 6 months for it to deploy, right? So, like, we wanna stay nimble even though we're part of a big mothership."
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I think there's also like you have to figure out if you're in one of those, I guess, like a sub brand within a larger brand, what do you want to connect and what do you not want to leverage? Because sometimes from a reputational standpoint, like if you're going into, I don't know, for as an example, if you're in more of like a healthy, maybe like green space, but the mothership doesn't actually fully, from a reputation standpoint, stand for that, there may be decisions that you make to not be associated to be able to move in that direction.
Yeah, I could totally see that.
Yeah.
How do you, or what do you prioritize when in that small you made that pivot to small,
Yeah.
you only have so much bandwidth, you only have so much budget. How do you prioritize what gets and what should you prioritize?
Yeah. I would say smaller,
Smaller. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
not totally small. And scaling. I think that at the end of the day, I made that pivot into smaller brands that wanted to scale. Because it's this energy and this like fire that I love and I'm addicted to.
Yeah.
I would say that what do you prioritize? It's dependent on which, vertical or industry that you're in, but you prioritize, in my mind, where your customer is the most and figure out and base your entire marketing strategy off of that. I think in some ways, because I do have that ad agency backbone, I do run marketing teams similar, but not the same to like an in-house agency in that like my resourcing models are very like similar. If I know that, we have a segment that's going to be the majority of our revenue target, well, then we're going to over index our marketing team to match that, as opposed to supporting a segment that maybe has a smaller target to get to that revenue. Sure, we'll support that, but that might be 25% of someone's allocation. Very similar to how agencies are operated. And I think that that's how I'm able to flex and focus and scale teams for these businesses that are growing.
Love that. What is a resource model?
Okay. So a resource model, ooh, love this stuff. So a resource model is understanding all of the different things and products that you have to support, and then deciding how are you going to tie your different focus areas to it. So I think on the marketing, in-house marketing side, that could mean you have different segments that need to be supported, or different product lines that need to be purchased, and they're usually tied to like a revenue target, and a percentage of that is how you're going to get there. What's interesting in a resourcing model would be, what are the resources in marketing that we need to be able to do that effectively, and how much of those resources do we need? And sometimes, you might need to increase, your web support for one of those segments, or you might need to increase your design support for another. But what it does is it really creates clarity for your ICs and your mid managers as to where their focus needs to be. Otherwise, everyone's doing everything not very well.
Yeah. And no one has time for any of them.
No way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see that being a hard doc to put together, but at the same time, so critical, right?
So critical. And it's something that, ad agencies do when they're staffing their plans for specific clients. That is just a framework, a really effective one for billing and client management, but also a really effective one for figuring out how you're going to be able to hit your revenue target on the marketing side.
What are the challenges for the smaller but looking to scale? Or what is the challenge even?
The challenge for the smaller looking to scale, I mean, there's a few different challenges, but the challenge is moving fast and failing forward, not moving fast to fail. So what I mean by that is, I believe really strongly about taking calculated risk, regardless of what size business you are, how large your marketing team is, right? But that if you know that it's something that this is a big bet, we're going to test it out strategically. These are why we think it's going to work. As long as it keeps you moving forward, it's good to try. But if there's enough out there that you're like, this might just be a really cool idea, but it's if we fail, it's over. That could be a lot of energy that's just spent doing something cool. And then what happens in smaller organizations is you spend your energy, and then you have to find the next big thing, and spend your energy and find the next big thing, and spend your energy, as opposed to iteration.
Do any examples come to mind for that?
So some examples that come to mind are, we have had in various different organizations that I've had the luxury of being a part of, we had different events that we wanted to trial and be a part of. And what we kind of did, hedged big bets, and events can be very expensive, right? On being able to trial those out and garner people's attendance. And what we decided on the smaller side is I've been in situations where it's like, we're just going to do it. And if it works, it works. And if it doesn't, we won't do it again. And I think that that's where the failure can sometimes come in when you're on those like scaled businesses. It's like, okay, what didn't work and why? And how do we try something different? So one of the things that I really feel strongly about is maybe that what you did at the event didn't work, or maybe that event didn't work, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't do events anymore, right? It's this idea of, how do we shift from what can we learn and do something better? Maybe we need to put on our own event, instead of going to that trade show. Maybe we need to do something a little bit more bespoke, but it doesn't mean we just say that channel's dead. And I think that sometimes as you're scaling, organizations can get shiny object syndrome, where it's like, well, that's working, let's keep doing that. And let's forget about trying new things.
And maybe not even understand why it's working, just that it's working.
It's working, so keep it on. Exactly.
And maybe it has nothing to do with the thing you're like, it just happened. They love the swag. Like, it has nothing to do with that event. You just happen to be showing up, and not really thinking that. I love that. It's almost like the anti-lazy thinking of like, no, okay, let's not just spend and too bad, so sad if we don't. Let's figure out why it didn't work or why it did work, and make some smart decisions after that. At least get some learning, right? As opposed to just did it and lost. What a risk there is though for someone to rule out a whole channel, a whole event, or whatever the case may be. All events, your sister didn't like it, so you don't get to do that either. It's like, wait, just because she didn't want to be, playing soccer doesn't mean I don't want to play soccer. Like,
Or it's just like I think some of the like tropes, if you will, like of, well, it didn't generate any leads. It's like, well, okay, wait a second, but did it influence like a deal that's in pipeline to then close it later? Like there's definitely different indicators, but I'm with you. It's like you can't just rule it completely out. Let's figure out what's working. And you know what? Let's play devil's advocate. If events for whatever reason don't work, okay. Is there something that you did there that did work? Is there a message that really resonated? Okay, do that more elsewhere. You can always learn. And I think that's just part of the iterative process of being able to, we need to keep moving forward. Fail forward is a really critical piece. I had a mentor in my life that was one of their phrases, and it sticks with me big time, because this idea of just failing to be propel is something that's very different than just failing to try something cool.
Hey, it was cool. It didn't work. Yeah, but I have no idea why.
Yeah, but wasn't it cool?
Yeah, it's so cool. Did nothing for any of our stats, but awesome.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, a little bit of responsibility and ownership and accountability to not just spend, but also spend wisely.
yeah. I think so, and I think there's the constant feedback loop of let's talk about this. What did we notice? You know, because there's a qual to things that performed or didn't perform as well. That oftentimes gets not maybe part of the CMO dashboard packet. It's like, wait a second, hang on. Why is that red? Why is that green? Can we talk about let's discuss that a little bit more? Because it doesn't mean if it's green, you don't have to care about it.
You still need to care. Absolutely.
A lot.
Like, still matters. Well, in learning lessons, it kind of brings up a great point. So I'm curious, like, where do you like to learn? What kind of sort
Mm.
podcasts? Is it books? What are you reading right now?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I really appreciate that. So, I like to learn from others within the industry, but also I would say really, really strong business women. I'm a member of Chief, and I really proud of that. I'm grateful for the other senior executive leaders that I get to hang out with, but also there's a number of just like webinars and podcasts and sessions and even events that I have access to because of that awesome program. But ultimately, it's through the different peers that I've met through that program that I've been able to, seek almost my own little, I would say, like my trainers, my little trainers, to be able to ask questions, to understand, what's working, not working, and just bounce ideas around. But I would say I also just get a lot of inspiration from people. And that maybe is a cop out, but as a people person, it's true. I just feel excited when I get to talk to folks about understanding what makes them tick. What resonated with you? Why? I went to school for communication, and I think that that's part of it. Is that idea of like psychoanalyzing people gets me excited to understand what makes them motivated and what they're excited about, and that can be any age. I'm a mom. I have two kids who are 13 and 9.5, and they inspire me daily.
13. They inspire and challenge you on the daily.
Yes. Yes, she does. But you know what? I mean, we have this conversation, she and I have this idea of the student teacher. Like most of the time, I think, I'm put in the teacher role because she's like learning about life, right? And it's my job and responsibility as her parent. But so often I do feel that it's flipped, where I learn, and of wisdom and just beautiful inspiration for how she navigates life. And I will even tell her, like, I am your student in that situation. Thank you for teaching me that.
Man, that sounds fantastic. So, like, really, my next question is like, where do you see the future? What's coming around the bend that you're excited to really capitalize on? All the changes
Yeah.
going on in marketing and brand and all
So
this.
many changes. Yeah. AI is the word that I think a lot of folks don't want to talk about, or they talk about without really knowing how they're going to use it. Where it's like, AI sounds cool. What are we doing for AI?
Right. The shiny thing you just talked about.
Yes. Yes. And I feel that as marketers, it just gives us a leg up when used appropriately. Through Chief, I was able to join, sessions early on run by leaders in the sciences about AI and even just from a philosophical standpoint, like how should we treat it? What should we do? And someone who was so wise, they said, y'all, it's like an intern. You need to be thinking about how you can leverage it to help with some of the busy, but you can't just, set it and forget it and put it out there into the world as is. Like, you need a fact check, you need to grow upon it. And so that really stuck with me. And so I think as marketers, we have the opportunity to leverage this tool in a way that's going to give us that leg up. If it means that, you can ask, I'm writing an ebook about this, what is an outline that could target, this type of persona? Don't have it write the damn ebook for you. But the idea of it can then kind of just get your motivators, your brain thinking in the right direction. It allows you that, I would say, head start, if you will. And I think that marketers need to lean into what is my version of that head start, because it's different for everybody in marketing. That was one example. And it's not something that we have to be afraid of. We have to figure out how to use it to be more effective.
I love that. My version of the head start and finding out what that is for you and giving you that leg and giving you a little bit of a boost at the beginning.
Yes.
Yeah, that is brilliant. So, really, next question is like, who are you? Who are you? How do you know all these things? Can you take me back in time? Like,
Yeah.
what Aggie days? Did you know you're going to be absolutely dominating the, head of marketing, crushing things, growth, all that? What was it like?
I have a really interesting background. I've never not worked in marketing. I grew up actually as talent in commercials and advertisements as like a baby all through my childhood. So I joke that I've been working since I've been 6 months old, which is kind of true. Although I, took a little bit of a break in between, to
I
like,
was gonna say, you need a vacation otherwise.
yeah, yeah. But because I started and was on shoots, as a child and was, talent on camera, I think it elicited in me early on that there was something happening that I could do to help tell a story on behalf of whatever it was I was holding. And so when I wound up going to school for communication, Rutgers University, RU rah rah grads, I didn't necessarily think that I would be on the other side of the camera ultimately,
Mhm.
but it was a natural path because I found myself really interested in learning about how I could do that more effectively between art, copy, words, experiences. And it got my brain thinking, but I think I had a natural inclination to that. So, I was entered the job scene .com boom, and I was this like young kid that everybody thought understood the internet, and I so didn't, but I was open to experimentation, and that really allowed me to try new things for companies and ultimately landed me my first agency job because I figured out how to keyword stuff the crap out of my resume. And a recruiter was like, hey, I keep seeing you pop up for literally every marketing job that I'm looking for. Like, what are you doing? I want to talk to you. And that landed me a job at Wyden and Kennedy in New York. So I was there for a really long time, and I wound up moving from East Coast to West Coast. They're headquartered in Portland, Oregon, and spent a number of years with Wyden, moved on to another agency that ultimately was acquired by WPP, building brand strategy departments, and fundamentally made that shift, as I talked about, where I thought, I want to figure out how to choose marketing every day, but for brands that I get to choose. Because if I'm going to do it, and I'm lucky enough to be able to do it, how do I choose the brands? And so I made that pivot into B2B, and I haven't looked back so far. I am really grateful for that experience and being on the B2B to C, tech space, which I've spent the last decade plus in building marketing machines. And I think that part of that stems from my childhood of, like I mentioned, being on set, realizing that there's this group of people that was coming together to create this thing, which is a big part of how I come at marketing. I come at it as a team and figuring out the teamwork. But outside of that, I'm a mom, as I mentioned, and I'm a musician. I played an instrument for a lot of my childhood and kind of put it on a shelf up until last year. I put it on a shelf for probably close to 20 years.
Yeah.
And then last year, I had to get a lot of surgeries, and I had this moment where I realized, oh my gosh, am I never going to be able to play again?
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, I picked up my flute and I played not well. And I realized, thank goodness I can still play, but this is not something to take for granted. And so
Right.
I play, and I'm a part of a band, a symphonic band in my community. And it's just a really lovely highlight of my life. So you're never too old to pick something up, try something new, suck at it, get better. And, I love that music is always there. It's like a universal connector.
Yeah. Was it like riding a bike or was it a little harder?
A little harder. But in some ways, like riding a bike, I would say, like, I remembered so much of my training that I was shocked by it. There are, of course, moments where I will practice and realize I should really know this and I have no memory of it. But there's this thing like Google and YouTube now that just wasn't there when I was learning how to play. That makes it a little bit less intimidating when you're trying something because you have a resource. And I have friends now who I can ask for support. But it is like riding a bike, maybe like a motorcycle.
Right? Yeah, you have to like get the fingers used to like for me in the trumpet, just getting actually okay, what do they have to go? Yeah, that's right. And they sort
Yeah,
of getting
yeah,
the almost like the cobwebs off,
big time. And for me, being so much older than the last time I picked it up, there's like physical things that are different now. I'm like, wow, my shoulder needs a break. That didn't happen when I was 18.
Yeah.
So
Right. Right. Yeah. Just the posture and everything. And how did in the world did I do you ever do like marching band or that kind of stuff?
I did.
Yeah. It's like, wow, I've
Yeah.
marched in the parade doing this stuff in the old days. It's crazy.
I know, I know. It was admittedly not my favorite thing, and I'm actually still quite friendly with my band director who like will like message each other every now and then. He's retired, but he's been such a big supporter in my life. And he was the one who found the community band for me actually.
Oh
He's
wow.
like, "Hey, you need to just try it, see what happens." But he probably would laugh. I was like always the squeaky wheel in the marching band. Like, oh, can I please just sit? I'm doing this because I just want to be able to sit.
Right? Yeah,
But I'm like,
totally.
I can't believe I did that. That was like heavy stuff. But there we were. And it sounds like you do that too.
Yeah, for sure. It's amazing something about, creating an art with people. There's that solo
Right?
painting and the solo, but being people, being able to create art with someone else can be really
Yeah.
special, you know?
I think that might be why we're so addicted to marketing.
I know, right? It's creating things with other people.
It is. It is for sure.
Just don't let sales in on it until the very last minute because then they're not gonna wanna do it.
No, they're part of it. They're part of it. Yeah.
Right, right. Have them create with you.
Like big time. Yeah, it's an art.
Talk to me about what you're doing now. So ABC, what's up?
Yeah. So I'm with ABC Fitness, and we are the technology behind most of the gyms, studios, and trainers that you've ever used. So if you've ever, go to a gym or you booked a session at one of your yoga studios, ABC Fitness is the technology behind that. And it's been such a great passion project for me because I personally really enjoy the health and wellness space. So I was like an end user of the product when I decided to take the phone call, and it's been such a pleasure. I think the it's a rarity in business, and I do feel really strongly about this that you get to work for brands that do so much good for the world, and when it does happen, you have to recognize it, realize it, and say thank you. And ABC is one of those. I mean, it's great to be able to wake up every day and know that what we do is helping people live their best lives. We help these studios and these entrepreneurs and these business folks who started a fitness business because they too were passionate about it and they wanted to help others. So it's this ripple effect of good. So it's a really, really cool space to be in. And, they've been around for over 40 years across over
Wow.
40 million members globally. So it is, yeah, it's pretty cool to be part of, the birthright of fitness, which is so cool.
Yeah. And at what point did you realize that some of the studios or gyms you've been going to had this software, or is it almost guaranteed that most of them are using this?
It is guaranteed with a lot of the big ones. I would say that I realized pretty immediately some of the names of the product lines that we have. And so when I was approached, I think I probably freaked the recruiter out because I was like, "Oh my God, oh my gosh, I know who you are." And she's like, "What?" So there was a little bit of that groupie feeling because I am one of those crazy people who wake up at like 4 a.m. for a yoga or Pilates class or something like that because it is something that helps clear my mind, and it means so much to me, and it's such a big part of my life. So it's nice to be a part of that for others. But it's yeah, the health and wellness space, and seeing how fitness has really just expanded post COVID is a really, really interesting world. And I think that fitness is, well, it's never not changing because it's fitness. It can't stay still.
Right. Man. Okay. Well, bit of a hypothetical question for you next, if you're ready.
Sure. Okay, I am. I'm excited.
Okay. Here we go. You see, I may or may not have a time machine up here in New Hampshire.
Okay.
And let's say you do an event in Boston, whatever, you come hang out. It's true. It's in the backyard covered in a tarp. So
Awesome.
you,
Okay.
you come visit. We use the time machine, right? You get to go back in time and meet yourself a couple days after getting that comm degree, right? And you get to go visit with yourself and have a conversation and chit chat. What do you tell that Aggie? What kind of advice would you give her?
Oh my gosh. Wouldn't that be amazing? So I have to come over so I can definitely do that, because this is like,
All right,
really
I'm
cool to be
done.
able to do that. I would tell her, don't worry if it doesn't make sense in the moment. It will all make sense when you look back. So, University Aggie was really driven and wanted to enter the marketing space, and had a number of different jobs that she had, taken. And this idea of when I was in it in the moment, it kind of felt like I was just running around and scrambling. Like, I did this thing, and then I took that internship and that class, and then I accepted that job, and it just seemed like I was all over the place. But now when I look back, it's actually a straight line. Like, everything connected and made me better to be able to get to this point. So I think that is probably something I need to remind myself, that it's okay if it doesn't make sense right now. It will in the long run. Keep going.
Wow, powerful. And I guess the follow-on question to that is, would you have listened to yourself?
Probably not. I would probably say, oh gosh, that's like, thank goodness that I don't have to worry about that. But like, now I'm going to keep moving forward because I want to make it make sense, like, so good.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
so competitive. Yeah.
Oh man. Well, hey, where do people go to connect with you if they want to reach out, connect?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, LinkedIn is the best place to find me, Agatha Asch on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect with you and start up a conversation. And if you have questions or thoughts or ideas, let's do some cool stuff together. Reach out.
Let's do it. Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on here.
Thank
Right, I kind
you.
of it's a time warp. We've had our own little time machine here. Like the time has just flown by,
It sure has.
but like talking about all the different things, dispelling that myth, like we're here to grow. We are here to do all,
We are.
but then also not being lazy about like don't toss that hot potato
Mm,
around. We just talked about so many cool concepts. I feel like it's a
did.
master class and I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you having me. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And for those listening, if you learned something, and I know you freaking did, because I literally have 2 pages of notes over here, front and back, and I'm running out of space. And I wrote it sideways. So if you learned something like I did, then share this episode with like one person. 9,000 is cool, but one person is totally, that's thought leadership, get good information in other people's hands. Maybe you have some people that are, falling into some of these traps we talked about. Maybe they need a little resource modeling going on here. Have them listen to this. And if need be, learn from this episode. And with that, Aggie, thank you again. Thank you for being
Thank
on
you
here.
so much, Casey.
All right, everyone. This has been a crazy cool episode of the Hardcore Marketing Show. We will see you all next time.